Mayem Pharmaceuticals in association with Higher Secondary Principals Forum.
Welcome students to yet another class of political science. Before I could start my class, I would like to appreciate the efforts and the initiative taken by Prudent Media and the Higher Secondary Principals Forum for reaching out to students in these difficult times and helping in the teaching learning process. Dear students, I do hope you take the maximum advantage of this initiative. My class for today is chapter 6 of political science, that is international organizations. Okay, this is the 6th chapter in your political science book. Well, you have already done 5 chapters. I'll just go quickly. I'll recap what you have already done. Well, the first chapter, that is the Cold War, speaks about the emergence of 2 superpowers. If you remember, the 2 superpowers, one is USSR and the other was USA. This happened after the Second World War. That was in 1945. So after 1945, you had the emergence of 2 superpowers, that is USA and USSR. In the second chapter, you studied about the end of bipolarity. That is how one of the superpowers disintegrated. Okay, one superpower that disintegrated was USSR. So you had USSR that was no longer a superpower, and we had only one superpower that remained, that was USA. So that was your second chapter. Then the third chapter, you spoke about US hegemony, how dominance of USA, hegemony in our local terms would mean dadagiri. So how USA tried to impose its dominance on the world. How you had the various operations that took place, how America went and attacked Iraq in spite of so many countries opposing it. Still, she went and she attacked Iraq, giving reasons which till today are not true. They said that Saddam Hussein had chemical weapons, which till today has not been proved. So that was the dominance that America showed. In that chapter we learnt about it, how the US hegemony in world politics. The fourth chapter spoke about alternative centers of power, where you have who can overtake America in future. So there were 3 things that you must have studied in that the 3 organizations, that is European Union, you had ASEAN, and you had China. Okay, European Union was countries from Europe. Many countries together came and formed the European Union. And maybe European Union is a threat to America, so America may not be in power for a very long time. There is somebody that can overtake America. So one of them was European Union. But I say, with the present situation, many countries, European countries, trying to leave Europe, this European Union, it may not be a threat to America. The second that that you must have studied is ASEAN, Association for Southeast Asian Nations. This is the the South countries, the Southeast Asian countries that came together. You had five Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries that came together to form this ASEAN. And then after 5 joined them. So total 10 you can say that formed this ASEAN, and they could be a threat to America. Now the third was China. Now China country alone could be a threat to America, and it's mentioned in your textbook by 2040 China can overtake America as a superpower. And the process you can say has started now, where China with this pandemic has put America on the back foot. Okay, it has not been proved that everybody blaming China, it has not been proved yet, but China has put the entire world on the back foot, and especially America. So that statement in your textbook saying that by 2040 China will overtake America as a superpower may come true, maybe even earlier. So China is one country that can overtake America as a superpower. Okay, so these 4 chapters were connected, and then we had the next, that was the contemporary South Asia is the next chapter. That's the 5th chapter in your textbook, contemporary South Asia. And this chapter speaks about countries in Asia, and there is one small cartoon in your textbook if you go through your textbook, and it's mentioned there. Why couldn't this chapter be called as Indian hegemony? Okay, that was a very nice statement that was made there, because why it is made, if you see the countries mentioned in this chapter, and especially in South Asia, you have Pakistan, you have Sri Lanka, you have Maldives, you have Bhutan. So these are countries which are smaller than India. Okay, Sri Lanka was there. So these countries that are less dominant than India. So that is why that one small cartoon which is put there, why couldn't this chapter be called as Indian hegemony? Because India is the dominating country there. Okay, so that was contemporary South Asia, and now we are coming to the 6th chapter, that is international organizations. Okay. Now here in this slide I have few international organizations. These are mentioned in your textbook. Maybe one of them is not there, but the others are there in your textbook. The first one is the International Monetary Fund. Okay, the first international organization that is there. Now what is the function of this? Basically it oversees financial institutions and regulations that act at the international level. So it is like an organization that looks at the other financial, this is a financial international organization. So it looks at other financial organizations in the world like a head, and then it looks after the other international organizations. Then you have the World Trade Organization, WTO. This organization, the word itself tells us, it regulates trade in the world. How trade has to be regulated in the world. So this is the organization that regulates maybe laws that have been made. It tries to see how trade can take place in the world. So World Trade Organization, that is WTO. Then you have the third one, that is WHO, that is World Health Organization, which is playing a very important role today in the situation that we are in today. Okay, the World Health Organization, it directs and coordinates health activities in the world. Okay, and it promotes research. Now vaccine has to be searched. Okay, it is this organization that is promoting the countries to try and search a vaccine for the virus that we are affected with at this time. Okay, so that is the World Health Organization, an international organization that is there. Then you have the next one is IAEA. It is International Atomic Energy Agency. The word, what is the function of this, is to see that nuclear energy is being used for peaceful purposes and not for military purposes. So that is the work or the aim of this international organization, that is International Atomic Energy Agency. Okay, so this is the agency that sees that the nuclear energy is used for peaceful purposes. Okay, there are countries dominating in this and they are doing what they want, especially America. There is the 5 permanent members, we are going to that later, and they dominate. Okay, try to suppress others from having these nuclear weapons, from having this nuclear energy being used. The last one is the World Bank. Okay, WB is the abbreviation for this. WB is the World Bank, which gives loans to the countries for different purposes. It could be for education, it could be for agriculture, it could be for industrialization. So it is an organization that provides loans to countries to try and bring about development in the world. So that is the World Bank. So these are a few international organizations. It's there in your textbook. There are many more. I've just put a few here in the slide. There are many more of these international organizations that exist. Now we come to why international organizations? Why are these international organizations needed? Are they really needed? First point, find peaceful solutions to contentious issues. Okay, to find peaceful solutions. Contentious issues that countries don't agree on. There's disagreement among the countries. So to find peaceful solutions is one of the aims of these international organizations. You know, countries today are in conflict. Majority, most of the countries you'll see are in conflict with one another. So to try and see that these issues can be solved peacefully. So that is one of the function of the international organizations. The second function is work unitedly to solve challenging issues. Unitedly, come together. So that is another function of these international organizations, to try and see that these countries come together and cooperate and try. Unitedly would be cooperate with one another and try and solve problems. Now, example in this could be our pollution, global warming. Now, what is happening is the developed countries have already done their development, their industries have already started, and it is the developing countries now that are starting their industries. And what is happening? It's a blame game that is taking place. The developed countries are blaming the developing countries for creating pollution, and the developing countries are saying the developed countries have already polluted the environment. So this is that blame game that is going on among the countries. So what is the aim of these international organizations is to see that together we can try and solve these problems. So blaming one another will not help. It will not bring about a solution. So try to get the countries together. Try to get them to cooperate and see what can be done to solve this problem of global warming. What are the measures that can be taken? So all together they agree that certain measures have to be taken to try and solve this global warming. Another example of working unitedly will be in the field of health, disease. Okay, again, I'm coming to the present situation we are in. I spoke about the World Health Organization asking countries to have a vaccine. Okay, research is going on in almost, you can say, many countries to find a vaccine for the virus that we are affected with. Now, cooperation, how will it be cooperation? Now, if one country finds a vaccine, they have to see that they distribute it, they supply this to other countries. If they be selfish and say, we are not giving it to you. Okay, whichever country, it could be India also that has the vaccine first. So if India says, we are not going to give it to you, we are going to cure our patients first, our people first, and then we will distribute it, that will not help. So cooperation will be that you try, all the countries try, okay, whichever country has that in the present situation that I'm talking, if any country gets this vaccine, try to distribute it and try to get this disease, this virus eliminated fast. So this is a new disease that we have. It can be even for the old disease. How we can prevent disease from spreading is when each country tries to inoculate or vaccinate their population. So when you're traveling to another country, the country tries to vaccinate its people and then they move to the other country so that you don't spread your disease or you don't get infected by the other disease, the disease that is present in the country that you're visiting. So in this way, you can have cooperation that takes place. Cooperatively, countries can work together to try and solve problems. So two examples, one is of global warming, one is of disease. That can be solved when countries work together. The next point is provide ideas and information on how to cooperate. So the international organizations have to see that they provide mechanisms to the countries to try and cooperate, maybe frame some rules where member countries have to follow these rules. If they don't do it, maybe they get some punishment or whatever. So it is the duty of these international organizations to provide ideas and information on how to cooperate. So different mechanisms that can be used by international organizations to see how the countries cooperate, maybe in solving problems, in trying to get the world united. Okay, so these are three functions of international organizations. Okay, one is find peaceful solutions to contentious issues, work unitedly to solve challenging issues, and provide ideas and information on how to cooperate. So peaceful solutions, to work unitedly, cooperate with one another, and then they are to provide information on how to cooperate and try to solve the problems. Now, the next slide that I have is on United Nations. I did not show you that the picture in my first slide of international organizations, mainly because this chapter speaks about United Nations. The international, although the name of the chapter is International Organizations, the main focus on this chapter is on United Nations. It is United Nations Organization, UNO, but it is also called as United Nations. Okay, and the picture that you have there is the logo of the United Nations Organization, and the picture that you have there is the office of the United Nations, which is in America. It's in New York, and the flags of the countries that are put there. So that is the main office of United Nations, which is in America. Now we come to the objectives of the UN, that is United Nations, objectives of the United Nations. First, to prevent international conflict. Same like what we had for the Y international organization, same points are here of to prevent international conflict. So try to prevent wars from taking place. Okay, the main aim will be to prevent wars. You know, in a war there is so much of bloodshed, there is so much of destruction that takes place. So one of the main objectives of the UN is to prevent international conflict, try to avoid war from taking place. So try to get the countries to dialogue when there are conflicts, when there are issues, contentious issues that was been mentioned, where certain issues that the countries don't agree on. So what will happen? The objective is to prevent these, try to get the countries together, sit together, discuss, dialogue with one another. The leaders come together and dialogue with one another and try and solve conflicts amicably without going to war. Second is to facilitate cooperation, same thing that was there. Try and make countries cooperate with one another. It happens in even if you take your personal life, students, even in your family, when there is some function, if everybody cooperates, the work is done faster. Take it in your school. If there is a function, if work is divided among different students, then the work will be done faster. If it is put on one person itself, one person is put in charge and that person has to do everything, then it becomes a little burdensome on that one individual, and maybe there could be errors. But when work is done unitedly, it is done faster. I won't say no errors, but it is done faster. It is done in a better pace because the work has been distributed. So same thing with countries. Try to cooperate, try to understand one another, try to bring about solutions, and then this is the objectives of the UN. So to get the countries together and to cooperate on issues. Same points repeated here. Next, to bring social and economic development. So another objective is to bring social and economic development. Social example would be like human rights. Okay, take issues that are dealing with human rights where children are being sold in many places. So those issues that can be taken. Okay, slavery that is there, not there so much, but there are cases where people are being sold. So those issues that can be taken up by the UN, so it tries to bring about social development. Women, cases of the women being ill-treated, so those issues can be taken up. So that is where social development takes place. Economic development also, it helps in that is the objectives of the UN, is to see that economic development of the country takes place. Fourth is role of the UN in a unipolar world. Okay, in the second chapter you saw there was a disintegration of one superpower, and today we have only one superpower in the world, that is America. So that is unipolar world. So here I won't tell you much here because there is a subtopic at the end of the chapter where it is the role of the UN in a unipolar world. Here I will just mention to you that the role of the UN in the world is very limited, mainly because the UN itself is dominated by America. So I will not go in detail here, we will see that in the last subtopic. Now we come to evolution of the UN. Well, students, this is not there for assessment, but I am doing it since it's connected. Without doing this, you cannot move further. So I'll just go in brief about this. The UN is a successor to the League of Nations. Now, you know the First World War, 1914 to 1918. We had the First World War. And after the First World War, countries felt that, you know, we should have one organization, an international organization, which sees that countries come together and prevent conflict from taking place. So the League of Nations was formed. After the Second World War, you had League of Nations that was formed. So that was after 1918. You had League of Nations that was formed. And the main aim, like UN, was to avoid conflict. But I must say it was not successful in its aim because we had the Second World War. So they were not able to contain countries from going to a war. So the aim of the League of Nations, you can say, was not very successful. They were not successful in what they were formed for. So this, after the Second World War, we know that was 1939 to 1945. That was the Second World War. After the Second World War came the United Nations organization that was been formed. Okay, so it was established in 1945, to be precise, 24th October 1945. You had the establishment of the United Nations organization, and we can say that this organization has been successful in its aim, basically because we have not had another world war till today, and touch wood, hope we don't have one. So this, you can say, is to a certain extent the UN has been successful in its aim, but we know that countries, many countries are fighting among themselves, okay, neighboring countries are having conflicts, but just hope it does not go into a world war. So till now we can say that the UNO has been successful in its objectives of avoiding, of preventing conflict from taking place in the world. Now there are 193 members. Almost all the countries are members of the United Nations organization, except maybe for 3-4 countries that are not. But majority of the countries are part of the United Nations organization. So we have 193 members that form part of the United Nations. There are 5 organs, main 5 organs of the United Nations. You have the General Assembly, where all the countries are the members of the General Assembly. Then you have United Nations Security Council. There are 5 permanent members and 10 non-permanent members. So 15 which make up the United Nations Security Council, one of the important organs of the United Nations. That is the United Nations Security Council. Then you have Economic and Social Council, third. Then you have the Secretariat, and you have International Court of Justice. These are the 5 organs, main organs of the United Nations. There are others, but these are the main 5 organs of the United Nations, which among these, the United Nations Security Council is the main one that takes the decisions. General Assembly, all the members, all the countries are part of the General Assembly. Whoever are members of the United Nations form part of the General Assembly. Permanent, non-permanent members, I told you, there are 5 permanent members, there are 10 non-permanent members. 5 permanent members, important countries are USA, Russia, China, France, England. 5 permanent members of the United Nations that take the major decisions. But I must say among these it is America that dominates again. Okay, America that takes majority of the decisions, and even when it went and attacked Iraq, there was nobody that could stop them. Although there are 4 other countries that were there, they were not able to stop them from attacking Iraq. And I told you, he gave all the wrong reasons and they went and they attacked Iraq. So this is 5 permanent. There are 10 non-permanent members that change after every 2 years. They have been elected, and India has been elected for this term now, 21-22. It's beginning of 21 to end of 22, India is been elected, and it's not the first time. It's not the first time that India has been elected as a non-permanent member. This is the 8th time. So 7 times before they have been elected to this as a non-permanent member, and this is the 8th time that India is been elected to the United Nations Security Council. So you have 5 permanent, non-permanent. The 5 are very powerful countries that dominate the world. Okay, then we have the next is, what are the criteria for new permanent and non-permanent members to become a member? What are the criteria that have been needed? Now first, it has to be, the country has to be a major economic power. Why? Well, there is a lot of criticism for this students, but we'll go through that. Okay, there are lots of opposition to it, or lots of questions that have been asked, but we'll just go through those. What is the criteria that is required? One is a major economic power. The country has to be a major economic power. So money-wise, it has to be a little powerful. Second, a major military power. So the army, it has to have a strong army where it can help the United Nations maybe. So that is a major military power. The country has to be a major military power. Third point, a substantial contributor to the UN budget. So there is a budget, a UN budget. So this country has to contribute to this budget, a substantial contribution. A big amount has to be contributed to the UN budget. That's another criteria to be a member. So if you want to be a member, you have to contribute to the UN budget. So that is another criteria. Now, the next is a big nation in terms of its population. So population wise, the country has to be large. It has to have a large population if it has to be part of the United Nations. Next is a nation that respects democracy and human rights. So a country that has democratic government and human rights. It respects human rights. So this is another criteria. Democracy, if you see, China is not a democratic country, but it is still part of the United Nations. That's a question mark there anyway. So, but that is a requirement, okay, where a nation that respects democracy and human rights. So democracy meaning freedom that has been given to the people to express themselves and to the needs for a democratic government. The last criteria we have, a country that would make the council more representative of the world's diversity in terms of geography, economic systems and culture. So country that would be represent world's diversity. So a country with diversity should be, geographical diversity should be included in the United Nations, so that there is diversity that has been represented in the United Nations in terms of geography, economic system and culture. So I told you there are criticisms for this. Okay, so questions that have been asked about this criteria is how big economic power? Okay, how big the amount is not been mentioned. Okay, a particular amount is not been mentioned, so how big? That is the question. Second is about military power. How big? These are questions that have been put forward. This was a criteria that was there long back. So now countries are questioning because they are not getting representation in the United Nations. So they are questioning. How big should the military power be? How big should the economic power be? How much? Then another thing is about the population. How big should be the population? How much? How much should be the population? So these are just terms that have been put there, but they have not made it very specific. So there have been questioned, they have been questioned now. How much? How big? These are questions that have been put forward to try and get more countries to represent the United Nations. Okay, so this is with regard to the criteria. Then we are going to the next, that is India's claim. India's claim for permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council. India has been trying to join the United Nations for a very long time. The permanent, I told you it is a non-permanent member for 8 years now. This is the 8th time it has been elected. They are elected for 2 years. 2-year term it is, then it changes. So 8 times it has come, it is a non-permanent member, but they are claiming to be part of the permanent member of the United Nations. And the reasons they give, okay, why aren't you all giving us? So the reasons India is giving, it is the second most populated country in the world. After China, we are India, so we have a large population. We fulfill that criteria that we have a large population. So that was one of the criteria that was there, that the country should have a large population. We have a large population. We are the second most populated country in the world. Okay, China is there, we are second. World's largest democracy. Okay, one criteria was to respect democracy. Here we are the largest democracy. So that criteria also we fulfill. One is we are populated, we have a democratic government. Third is we have participated in all initiatives of the UN, especially in the peacekeeping efforts. So all the initiatives that the UN has taken, we have cooperated with them. So why aren't we getting a chance? So these are the claims which India is putting forward. See, we have all this. We have population, we are the largest democracy, we have a democratic government right from the beginning of our independence. We have participated in all the initiatives of the UN in the peacekeeping efforts that have taken place. We have cooperated, we have participated with them. Our economy is emerging. We have economic emergence on the world stage. Okay, our economy is emerging. We may not be a big power, but it is emerging. So the question there will be pertinent here, how much money, how big an economic power? So there, that question would be applicable to India. We are an emerging, so how much do you need to be part of the United Nations? So we are claiming that we are emerging as an economic power. So we need to be part of the United Nations organization. Then regular financial contributions to the UN. We spoke about the criteria, contribution to the UN budget. Here, India is saying that we regularly are contributing to this UN budget. We are contributing to the budget that is been needed. We are contributing. So how much? Again, the question would be here, how much? And if we are part of this, naturally it signifies importance in the world affairs. So this, being part of the United Nations naturally gives us that importance, and it will help us in our foreign affairs. So being part, the 5 permanent members have so much of power. So India, if it gets this permanent membership, naturally its power in the world will increase, its dominance in the world will increase, and that is why India has been claiming to be a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. So if you see the criteria and if you see the points that India is claiming, we fulfill almost all those criteria. And still we have not been given this permanent membership, and one of the reasons could be our relationship with Pakistan. Okay, we are in conflict with Pakistan since our independence, so that could be one of the reasons. If you yourself are in conflict, how you're going to solve problems. So that I'm saying that could be one of the reasons why that the possibility is there. The critics say that maybe that is one of the possibility why we have not been able to be part of the United Nations. And secondly, it is China. China has been opposing India from being part of the United Nations, because also another factor could be we are a developing country. So if we are given membership, if we become part, then the other developing countries also will ask for membership. So it is difficult. It is a difficult thing, demand or a claim by India, but let's hope in future we do become part of the United Nations. But at the moment it is a difficult proposition that we are making. Here, this is the last subtopic that we are come to, is the UN in a unipolar world. I told you there, it is only, I told you the UN has a limited power. In the United Nations, they hold a limited role in the United Nations. Now why, we'll see here. First point, the first point I have taken is a limited role in the United Nations. Okay, since we saw after the Second World War that we had one superpower that was there, that was America. So they are the ones that are dominating in the world. Being a sole superpower, they are financially very strong. Military wise, they are very strong. No country, you can say, single-handedly maybe will be able to fight America, except I can say China. Okay, so as we have already seen that they are going to overtake maybe America in near future. So there is nobody financially that can defeat them. There is military wise, they are very powerful. So that dominance they have. Politically they are very strong. So this dominance they try to impose on the UN. And also during that the first Gulf War, you see the UN send the troops. Okay, the UN sent the troops, but these troops were dominated by America. America army was the largest, the American soldiers were the largest number. So they are the ones who call the shots in the UN. So because of being a sole superpower, military wise, economic wise, it is very strong. Considerable influence of the US in the UN. Okay, I showed you that picture first, where the UN is physically located in America. It's in New York. So they have many of their bureaucrats that are part of the UN. So their dominance, physically they are present, the presence is in America. The members that are part of this UN, the bureaucrats that are part of the UN are dominated by US. So there is considerable influence of the US They are the ones who take decisions. They are the ones who dominate all the issues that are there in the world. Okay, that very good example is about how they went and they attacked Iraq, where nobody could stop them. In spite of the other 4 countries being part of it, they couldn't do it. Here we are coming to that, is the veto power. Veto power of US. Veto power, what is veto power? It is like a negative vote where all these 5, only the 5 countries, permanent members have this veto power. Okay, only 5 permanent members have the veto power. So it is one vote. Now if there's an issue, countries can say yes, no. We are in favor of it, we are not in favor of it. And if one country among them says no, the full thing gets negative. So even if 4 of them say yes and one country says no, still that full issue will be a negative. So this is veto power. It is like a negative power, and this veto power the US uses for its benefit. Okay, when some issues, when some policies are going against their economy, maybe against them, they will veto that. So this, they misuse this veto power many times when there are some issues, some policies that are going against America, they veto that. So this is the veto power that the members have. It's a mediator between US and the world. Okay, so the UN has managed to bring the US and the rest of the world together. They have managed to a certain extent. Okay, so it is a mediator between the US and the world, the UN. So it tries to pacify USA and tries to get it to solve certain problems. So between USA and the other countries. So it acts as a middleman, the UN acts as a middleman between USA and the other countries. Actually it is, the UN should try to solve the problems, but it is like the dominating factor is USA, so they try to pacify USA to try and change or try to solve certain problems. So that is a mediator between US and the world. And the last point is about increasing importance of the UN. Okay, all said and done, although USA is dominating, UN is required. The United Nations is required with more than 7 billion people in the world. Okay, there are 7 billion people that we have in the world, and each one having their issues, each one having their problems. Okay, all these countries having their problem. It is the UN that will be able to solve these problems, try to act as a mediator to try and solve these problems. So although America is dominating, we must say that this international organization is needed in today's time, where we have so many problems, where we have so many difficulties that are been taking place among countries. So to solve this, the UN is required. So this is the role of the UN in the unipolar world, where we have America that is dominating, but last point as I have put, it is required to a certain extent. Yes, students, we have come to the end of this international organizations. Just a recap fast of what we have done is the need of international organizations. Why do we need international organizations? So we had 4 points there, 3 points: to find peaceful solutions, to work unitedly, and provide ideas and informations on how to cooperate. So that was the need for international organizations. The second was objectives of the UN. What is the aim of the United Nations? Is to prevent international conflict, to facilitate cooperation, to bring social and economic development. And then I spoke about the role of UN in a unipolar world, where the role of the UN is limited, but it is required. Then the next was India's claim for permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council. So India's claim, we spoke about how we first spoke about the criteria and then how India is claiming. We fulfill, you can say, almost all of the criteria that are needed to be part of the United Nations, but still we are not getting this permanent membership. Okay, I told you reasons was Pakistan, a conflict with Pakistan. China is another hurdle for us. Then if we are a developing country, so if we are given, there will be so many others that will also demand to be part of the United Nations. So these are certain hurdles, certain blocks that are there for us to become part of this United Nations. And the last was the role of the UN in a unipolar world. So limited role of the UN, considerable influence of the UN, of the US in the UN, the veto power, and it's a mediator. And the fourth point was about increasing importance of the UN. Okay, students, so these are the four main things. I have told you lots before, but these are the four main topics that can come for assessment. Okay, and this chapter carries 5 marks for the board exam, 5 marks, and 3 marks for your formative exam, first formative. So this is the last chapter for the first formative, the 6 chapters you have for the first formative. We don't know when are the first formative exams, but let's hope it is fast. It will be better for you also, so that those internal marks can be counted. So concentrate on these 4 subtopics for your internal, for the formative exam, first formative exam. Yes, students, wishing you all the very best, and let's hope the situation improves and we have our exams and everything goes well. Thank you.
Prudent Scholars, powered by Lupin Pharmaceuticals.